Well, a federal judge is calling out the Trump administration and demanding more answers after it missed a deadline to provide details about that deportation of alleged Venezuelan gang members to El Salvador.
U.S. District Judge James Boasberg had requested information after ordering the Justice Department to pause deportation flights. Those flights were being carried out under an 18th century law called the Alien Enemies Act. The DOJ had until noon yesterday to provide details about who was on those planes and why some of them apparently departed even after his order. In a 3-page ruling yesterday, Boasberg said that the government, quote, again evaded its obligations, adding the information provided by the DOJ shortly after the deadline passed was, quote, woefully insufficient.
We have NBC News legal analyst Danny Cevallos here to break this down for us. Hi, Danny. Okay, so if we could rewind a little bit, I want to start on this back and forth that we saw between the judge and the Justice Department over the fact that this order was first issued verbally. Explain the importance of that.
So this happens all the time. At a hearing, a judge and the litigants will say things back and forth, and the judge might say something, well, I'm going to order this, this, and this. And I even there's judges that I appear in front of who say, I'm not even going to do a written order, just order the transcript, and that's my order. The problem is, it's not as clear as a written order, which says things like, I hereby order number 1, number 2, and number 3. When you do it by transcript, you're left kind of divining what exactly the order is. Sometimes it's clear. Sometimes it's not. And that's really what the administration is seizing on. They're saying, hey, you know, everybody said a lot of words in this transcript, but what about this is clearly in order? We say it's not clearly in order. The real order to us was the minute order entry, which, by the way, is another kind of written order that just appears on the electronic case filing system. It's not a four corners piece of paper, but it's usually a summary of an actually filed order. So there are many different kinds of orders. The clearest one is one on paper that says, this is my order. A transcript can be one, but it's open to interpretation.
All right, so let's talk about where we're at now. The judge saying woefully insufficient. He didn't like that it was a 6-paragraph answer from the DOJ. Talk about why the judge says that was not sufficient. And just from a legal perspective, what's the DOJ's rationale? What's their argument?
The judge ordered someone to provide information, and the declaration that was submitted was by someone who said, well, my understanding is that the government plans to invoke the state secrets privilege. And that's kind of magic legal language when somebody's doing an affidavit or saying something to the court that they don't have personal knowledge of. This is a common issue. A lot of times people would submit affidavits, but litigants like me will demand, no, I want somebody with knowledge because there's wiggle room, right? There's a lack of accountability if you have an affidavit from someone who says, well, this is what I hear. This is what I think the government's going to do. That's not committal. And that's what the judge is saying. This is woefully insufficient because somebody needs to execute an affidavit with knowledge, and not just with knowledge, with personal knowledge. And that's why the judge said, go back to the drawing board. The problem, I get it. What the administration's trying to do is avoid a higher up, someone way high-ranking in the chain of command to issue or to submit a declaration. They'd rather have someone more low-level who you can say, well, there's not as much responsibility there.
Danny, the judge gave kind of 2 deadlines here, 10 a.m. today, but then also until Tuesday to decide if they'd like to invoke what's called the state secrets privilege. How would that work? What's that?
So there's a common law privilege. In other words, there's long existed a privilege where the government can invoke state secrets. They can say, well, we believe this will expose state secrets, so we have a privilege to not disclose it. The downside for the government is they're likely going to need an affidavit from probably the agency head. And that's, again, another level of commitment. That itself is a form of additional disclosure that the administration may be reluctant to engage in. But likely they will have to get someone with real authority, not just somebody who's a low-level field office rep, but somebody who may even be an agency head to commit to the state secrets exception.
All right, Danny, thank you as always.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.